Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about how positive reframing can help you to move yourself away from intrusive thoughts, which could also be called obsessive thoughts. And this same approach will also help you to move away from any repeating negative thoughts that you feel it would be beneficial to shift yourself away from. Okay, I'm Orla Kirby. I'm a therapist and I specialise in helping people to move themselves away from OCD and or severe anxiety. So, in this video, I'm going to talk first a bit about what reframing is, and then I'm going to talk about how and why that can help you to shift yourself away from intrusive thoughts. Okay, so what is a reframe? Simply, a reframe is simply a really radically different way of looking at something, or experiencing something, or feeling something, or hearing something, right? So, and it's particularly useful if you've gotten stuck in a particular mode of looking at something, or a particular way of feeling about something, or like you hear something in a particular way and there's something a bit stuck about that, a bit fixed, right? Now you can see already probably just from that description how this is going to be incredibly helpful for intrusive thoughts, right? Because intrusive thoughts or obsessive thoughts are all about something that's gotten stuck, right? It's gotten fixed. There's been a muddle, a misunderstanding somewhere. I don't diminish it. I know they can be horrendous to experience, but I do think that's a useful way of understanding what's happening, is that there's been a mistake somewhere. There's like just a mistake that's looping, and it's gotten stuck, right? And so what we can do with reframing is, in a really powerful way, nudge that into being a little bit less stuck, right? Now, I'm not saying that with a simple reframe, you can just, bye-bye intrusive thoughts. There's lots of other things that will work really, really well for completely moving away from intrusive thoughts. And something like reframing is going to be, an early stage of just loosening things up a bit, making things a bit less stuck, so that then the kind of more deeper work can be done, right? Because things have become a bit more loose, a little bit more free and mobile, right? So what really is a reframe then? How does it do this? Well, there is a lovely phrase that I absolutely think is marvellous in NLP called loosening your model of the world, right? Isn't that great? So that is where you are very powerfully shifting your whole sense of things, right? Of yourself, of the world, of other people, and everyone, not just people who are experiencing intrusive thoughts or obsessive thoughts or have OCD. Everyone has things that they're a bit stuck on or a bit fixed with, right? That could do with some loosening up and some shaking up, right? And a reframe is a great way to do that. So it really is quite wide. It's anything that you can say, or that someone else can say to you, that is going to really flip things around, turn things upside down, have you kind of, ideally you want the outcome from a reframe to be, you kind of going, what? That's a really good outcome, right? Huh? Yeah. It's also worth mentioning here that another way of entering into hypnosis, because I talk a lot in these videos about how you can use breathing and how you can use ID focusing and all different ways to enter hypnosis in a really relaxing way. Another way to enter hypnosis is confusion. Isn't that interesting? So confusion can be really useful, which I think is great, and actually in itself is a useful concept for moving away from intrusive thoughts, because often with obsessive or intrusive thoughts, what someone will be searching for or really wanting to get to is a sense of certainty. Like if you're having an intrusive thought around, did I do this thing? Maybe I did this thing, and thinking about something awful that you may have done, and really rationally, you didn't do it, but there's that kind of question: how can I be certain I didn't do it? How can I be certain? And that's just one example, right? But there's so many intrusive thoughts or obsessive thoughts that can be around or about kind of a quest for certainty, right? And I think it's really helpful to learn to value confusion in this way, right? Not that that's the only opposite of certainty, right? There's loads of brilliant opposites of certainty that you could get enthusiastic about, right? Like just mystery. Yeah, it's also a great idea to get excited about the idea of mystery and things being mysterious and that being actually beautiful in lots of ways. And acceptance, or kind of surrender is another kind of approach of kind of something that you can feel great about and that can be really powerful, that is very different to certainty, right? To going after certainty. But confusion is also quite different to certainty, right? And I think it's really good to know that learning always involves confusion. Or if you think of anything you've ever learned that you know how to do well, there were elements of confusion as you were learning that, right? So confusion is really powerful. It's part of learning, it's part of growing, and it helps us to relax. Interestingly, it helps us to enter hypnosis. So hypnosis being a relaxed and focused state, confusion is helpful for that. Okay, so to go back to my original thing that I was talking about, which is reframes, in a way, what I've just done there, although I didn't realise I was doing it at the time, is a reframe, right? What I've just done there is I've reframed confusion a little bit in terms of, maybe not for you, because maybe you already feel great about confusion. But if you were someone watching this video who didn't feel great about confusion, who felt like, oh, I hate doing this thing because it involves confusion, I've offered you a way to look at confusion that is positive, where it can be a powerful thing, where it can help you learn, where it's an essential part of learning and growth and development, where it can actually help you to enter hypnosis, which is an incredibly beneficial state and actually makes everything better. So that's a very radically different way of looking at confusion as compared to someone looking at confusion as, oh, I hate being confused, or I don't like this because it means being confused, or something like that. I'm just trying to think of another example. Sometimes it doesn't even need to make sense. So sometimes if you're working with an NLP practitioner, they may come up with a reframe that literally logically doesn't make sense, but it just, the words or the language of it just make you kind of rethink or flip around how you're thinking about either a problem or something you're struggling with or something you don't like or feel like you don't like. So yeah, it's a lot about language, and it can be just swapping things around, right? So almost like, if you are having a recurring thought that's bothering you, something to do might be to kind of almost just flip the language about it or make it silly in some way, right? It's something that will just make your mind go, huh? I do think reframing is probably easier to do with a professional person, with an NLP practitioner or someone else who knows about and is trained in reframing, because actually it's always going to be easier to do a reframe for someone else. Right? Like, not that I'm saying I don't reframe things for myself, but, even for someone who's trained in it, it's going to be easier for someone else to offer me a reframe, right? Because they necessarily are quite challenging to the way that we are thinking about things, and it can be helpful for them to come in from the outside, right? At the same time, there are things you can do, right? Almost another way of looking at reframing is to think, how would someone else think about this? Like if I'm thinking XYZ, do I think that everyone thinks XYZ? Can I imagine for a moment someone who thought the opposite thing? And what would they be saying? And can I almost step into imagining what that would be like for a moment? Even if I'm not fully signing up to it, or I'm just seeing this as an imaginary exercise right now, what is this repeating thought I'm having? And could someone else think either a very different thought or an opposite thought, or disagree with me about this? And what would that be like? And how does it make me feel? Right? Is another kind of way into reframing. Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to say loads about that in terms of doing it yourself, because I do think this is one of them. I wanted to kind of explain the concept as part of this series, but I do think that reframing is something that's most helpful probably to have someone to guide you through and to offer you a reframe, because I could tell you all the ways of reframing. And maybe I will make a video about that at some point. That would be a kind of different video. But and if I do make that, I'll link to it in the description here. But I think actually, it is always going to be more helpful to get a reframe from somebody else, right? But in terms of you understanding how it works and why it works, it's because you're kind of shaking up your whole notion of how you feel about that thing, or how you're looking at it, or how you're hearing it. So like really little simple things you could do is just, think, put the thought in a silly tone of voice, right? Or like slow it up and speed it down so it becomes ridiculous, or something like that, right? I wouldn't suggest doing loads of that because we actually don't want you repeating this any more than need be, you know, if you're already repeating it, right? But occasionally that might be something that's quite helpful to do. Yeah, and actually this is the sort of thing where you could work with a professional to get some really helpful reframes, and you wouldn't even need to see someone loads of times to do that, right? Yeah, so I kind of more wanted to explain about the concept of reframes. I hope that makes sense. And do feel free to contact me if you have any questions about reframes or what reframing means. Okay, and I hope you enjoy the next video. See you in that one.